Hello everyone, welcome to my first Photoshop tutorial. In this video I'm gonna explain to you the basics of Photoshop. Hello everyone, so first of all I wanted to talk about Workspaces. So when you open your Photoshop for the first time it probably looks a little bit like this, and I don't need all these windows, so they're just really confusing to me, and I have already saved my workspace and I only have my adjustments over here. I have my layers and I have my history, which are already important to me. If I need anything else I can open it, but most of the time that are all I need, and here are my tools of course. Also I will export my workspace and share it with you guys if you want to work with my workspace as well. Of course, it also depends on what you want to do on Photoshop, so if you have a different workspace you want to save, you can do it up here, new workspace, and you can name it and then save it. So now I'm gonna explain a little bit the tools on the left hand side to you. I will only explain the most important ones. So this one is the move tool, you can move your object around. This one is the marquee tool, you can change it to different shapes like this and just select the areas in the image. This is the quick selection tool. I use it a lot because it finds automatically the borders from one object in the image to the other. So you can really quickly select areas in the image with this tool and deselect areas with pressing the Alt button. So this is of course a cutting tool, so you cut your image here in the size you really want it to. You can choose the different sizes here, so 2 to 3. I use the eyedropper tool a lot. You can choose the color from different parts of the image, which is really useful. This one is probably my favorite. It's the healing brush, so you can choose whatever you want to be healed. For example, here's these little spots, and I choose a path of the image which seems spotless, and I put it on the spot, and the spot is gone, which is really great. So this is the brush tool. I think everybody knows what a brush is, so you can actually just write down something with the brush, but it makes a lot of sense with the masks, which I'm gonna explain to you in a minute. The stamp tool is probably one of my favorites as well. So you choose again a part of the image you want to be stamped to another part of the image. So I'll show you a little better. Here's the head, and I want the head to be here. This is the stamping tool. So what I also use a lot is the paint bucket tool. You can fill some spaces in there, so this is really useful as well. Sometimes I use the path tool. You can select some areas in there, which is quite useful sometimes. Of course, the text tool, where you can write some text in your images. And you see the two squares down there, the black one and the white one. You can select the color from somewhere in the image, but also it's really useful with the mask, what I'm gonna explain to you in a minute. So I'm now gonna talk about adjustments, but only about the ones I really use often. So first of all, there is the brightness and contrast tool. Of course, it makes the image brighter or darker, and more contrast and less contrast. Then there is the levels tool. It's about contrast as well. So you see these 3 dots here. If you move the left one towards the middle, it makes the image more dark. If you move the right one towards the middle, it makes the image more bright, and the middle dot is for the middle tones. So this is the curves tool. It's probably one of my favorites. So it's about contrast as well, and brightness and darkness. So you can turn around the brightness and darkness and everything actually with this tool. You just have to try it out a little bit to figure out how it's working. I can say that much, that I think most of the time for a nice contrasty image it works to make an S-curve with the curve, so make the brighter parts a little bit more bright and the darker parts a little bit more dark. So this is the exposure tool. I think everybody who's a photographer knows what exposure means, so it makes the image like overexposed or less exposed, so darker and brighter. As well, the offset just makes the image a little bit more dusty, and gamma connection makes the contrast like really dark contrast and really bright contrast. So I don't use the offset and gamma connection a lot. This is the saturation tool. You can change the vibrance and saturation here. If you're working with saturation, I think this tool makes more sense, the hue and saturation tool. You can turn up the saturation of the whole image and turn it down so it's black and white, but you can also switch to all the other colors, so red, yellow, green, cyan, blue and magenta, and make every single color more or less saturated. And you can also just change the lightness of the different colors, so you make it more bright or less bright. With this tool you have a really good control over black and white images, so you can turn your image into black and white and then move around the brightness of the colors in a black and white image. This is the photo filter. You can give your image a warmer or colder look with that. And this one is my very favorite, the Selective Color. Because you can select the colors there, for example as well red, and then you can put more cyan in all the red tones in the image, or less cyan, or more magenta and less magenta. So it really changes the colors if you really turn them around. It's a really useful tool if you're working with colors. So one thing I really want to talk to you about are layers. So you can see right now I only have my background layer over here. Any adjustments I open, just put another layer above the background image. So this is really cool because it doesn't hurt the background image. With this little eye button I can make the adjustment I just made visible or invisible. I can open a blank layer when I click on this little button down here, and then I can do anything in this layer. So I just have my white brush and I just painted something in there, and of course I can make it visible or invisible again. What is really useful for me as well, or the most important tool for me actually, is the masks. So I just clicked on this little button down here and you can see that this white thing opened. So it's only white right now, but if I paint in there with a black brush, you see it just removes part of the image, and I can put them back when I paint in with the white brush. So I work with this a lot, like you can do it on anything. You can make the brightness tool and you see they already have like this masks over here. So if I change the brightness into really bright, but I just wanted to have the face in a normal color, then I can paint in the masks of the brightness adjustment with a black brush